From New York, you are listening to Extra Time, presented by AT&T 5G. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Kalen Carr, Matt Doyle. It is our, I was going to say it's our final Monday after MLS action, but that is not true at all. There's another Monday to come after MLS Cup next weekend on Saturday in Los Angeles.
But we won't be recording on Monday.
Go! There it is. Thank you.
Right?
Technicalities for the win.
Details matter, Wiebe.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know when we're going to record yet. Maybe on the field after MLS Cup. Maybe after a little, little brown liquor at the hotel after MLS Cup. Maybe the breakfast, post-breakfast the next morning, the Bobby Warshaw special, as many call that.
That was
Herculean.
Of the
what
four
a
of
show.
us. I
love that everybody is just like, we have no idea when we're taping this show.
Of the four of us, who is most likely to pull a Bobby Warshaw post-MLS Cup and just be in a banged up state and nigh unable to podcast?
Well,
I feel like after the Ben Bear wedding,
I was going to say, I recall a car issue. If anyone's not watching, like quotes are up. I recall someone leaving quote unquote radio on because this car was built in 1961.
Time out. I forgot that I did not address this on the last show. I forgot I was slandered repeatedly by Doyle. Lies were uttered, put into the public forum.
I was just asking questions.
I
was just asking questions.
First of all, wasn't a radio.
He comes back to New York after living in Kansas for a year. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't keep up.
Too much energy in the
Never
city.
been to New Rochelle before. That's what threw me off, man. Upstate Westchester, it was just too much for me. It was the headlights, Doyle. It was not the radio. It was the headlights.
I think Doyle, you can clearly say, with Wiebe bringing facts, you can just clearly say you agree to disagree, right?
Yeah, exactly. I agree to disagree.
All right, you're going to play the role of Austin fans.
I've done my own research.
Yeah, exactly. Doyle's got his own background.
But honestly, that you left the headlights on.
I did.
Was the car made in 1987?
Arguably, because of sponsor issues on this show, I cannot reveal to you.
Okay.
The car that I was driving.
What kind of tires
were there? Borrowed. You know that what kind of tires they would be. Continental, always. I don't drive anything not wrapped in Contis. That's just the way I live my life. But this was an older vehicle borrowed from a good friend. And I'll just say that I scammed AAA and impersonated him in order to get it jumped. So we can check the AAA records. Anyway, we're going to Los Angeles next Saturday. MLS Cup, LAFC Union, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. local, Bank of California Stadium. Big Fox, Unimas, that's how you watch in the USA. And in Canada, TSN or TVA, MLS Cup is set. It's 2 number 1 seeds for the first time since 2003. Nearly 2 decades have passed since we got this. First-time finalists. Of course, that means first-time winners. LA working over Austin in the early game on Sunday in the conference finals. A 3-0 win for them. They are on to host it. This has been the goal the entire season. The Shield, yeah, that was cool, but it wasn't the ultimate goal, and now they're on the brink. The Union have been on the brink, both in Open Cup finals and as well as last year's Eastern Conference final. Well, they got over the hump. They're in MLS Cup. They still got to win the thing. They're going on the road. Right now, Vegas has them as the underdog. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. We'll give you the best thing we saw from the conference finals. Actually, you know what? First impressions, MLS Cup, Doyle. What do you got for me?
I'm just jacked that it's number 1 versus number 1. Like that is the big thing for me. You said it right off the top, or just about off the top after we relitigated whatever happened to you last weekend.
This is the most airtime New Rochelle has got on this show in a long time. Look, I lost the crank, all right? I didn't have the crank.
Yeah, so here's the thing. You guys all know that I am like the supporter shield guy. I think it is the best representation of who the best team is in the league any given year. And what we had this season was 2 teams that were basically neck and neck, kind of flip a coin between them who the best team was. LAFC won the Shield because they held the tiebreaker in MLS, which was wins. In any other league in the world, it's actually Philly who wins the Shield because in almost every other league, the tiebreaker is goal differential, right? So, these teams are clearly the 2 best. They're clearly very evenly matched. MLS Cup is going to be the actual decider of not just the end of the season tournament, but of actually the entire season. Who was the best team in the league this year? That is I am very, very jacked about this.
The other thing I would add is I said leading down the stretch that in this case, and I'm on the other side of things where I'm normally, well, yeah, supporter shield, very nice trophy, respect. But ultimately, what do you want? MLS, right? Who remembers all of the supporter shield winners from every year? Matthew Doyle. But, I would say in the broad swath of the community, MLS Cups are the ones that I remember, and the ones
I think
that I
can
care
speak for the community when I say
I will
that
speak
what
for
I
it.
remember.
But no, I mean, it's growing. I mean, supporter shield is growing, but I think in this case, it actually, I said if it would help, winning the supporter shield would help LAFC in this case push to MLS Cup. I thought the two this year specifically would be closely tied together. And part of that was because LAFC had built up such a large lead that they were able to experiment and try and incorporate all these different players and new signings and really hadn't figured out who they were and lost their way. And what ended up happening was in order to kind of like, because of Philly pushing, they had to really figure out this lineup to even win the Shield. And I think at that point, that's when really things shifted for them. So I think the two this year were very closely tied together. And I think even in the case of Philadelphia, that little push down the stretch brought them into a good place where in times we've seen that hurt teams where they do a good job to win the supporter shield. And then they get to the playoffs and it's like, they're gassed. They're done. I think this Philly team a couple years ago went out in the first round in the same way. So I think this has been a different way. And I would just, I echo the sentiment that it's a good thing when the best teams make it all the way to the final. And, it's a rare thing as well.
I think Kalen has obviously, what he said there of MLS Cup, that's what lives on. And Weeby, you've mentioned for LAFC, it's MLS Cup or bust, right? This is the key. And so it feels like to me, whoever scores in MLS Cup, Golden Boot team should probably be the winner because that's what matters. And it feels like Daniel Gazdag scoring in an Eastern Conference Finals and potentially scoring in an MLS Cup. That should be the deciding factor, honestly, because that's what history will remember.
I've been brought straight back to this. I was going to do, by the way, happy Halloween to everyone who celebrates, trick or treats, goes to Halloween parties, etc. We were going to do our best MLS nerd Halloween costumes off the top here, but we're already neck deep in MLS Cup talk, so I'm going to postpone that. We will move the Halloween conversation down to the hot sandwich conversation part of the rundown. Really special part of the show. I know you'll look forward to that with great anticipation. Also, by the way, Lionel Messi to Inter Miami is either real or fake or made up or somewhere in between. We'll talk about that in a little bit from the AT&T 5G virtual studios. Facundo Torres is linked with Arsenal, but now Tom Bogert is walking that back, and I don't know. We'll figure that out. And then we have hot sandwiches, of course, in the mailbag, which Doyle has not participated in. He did not listen to the show, so we'll get his top three.
I got to tell you right now, I got a Nardelli's menu open. Nardelli's, of course, legendary sandwich chain in Connecticut.
Anyway.
Later on in the show.
It'll be right after the Go Huskies talk around Andre Blake. So just be prepared for that. What is the best thing that you saw from the conference finals? We've sort of hit mine, which is just that we have the two best teams. Like ultimately, this is what you want at the end of the year for me, is that the teams that showed the most over the course of the year, the teams that have the most, I think, sort of mouth-watering storylines, you might call them narratives, depending on your perspective, are here. It's Philly on one side, sort of the grit, the grind, the building of of an academy that can get it done, but then also the building of a scouting network that punches way above its weight. Like, who is Daniel Gazdag going to be? Is it going to be, just a guy in MLS, like a decent signing, or an MVP candidate? He was an MVP candidate. Who was Kai Wagner going to be? Ernst Tanner has just swung and connected on so many of these signings. That's not to say that LAFC have not done that, but they've done it with significantly more funds. They've gone out and they've raided South America for top prospects. They signed Carlos Vela to kick off their club and have held on to him through MVP form and injuries, etc. They've gone and got stars, and then they've reinforced as well from within the league. So you have kind of this glitz and glam, like Owen Wilson's not showing up at union matches going, wow, great atmosphere in the bank. Like they don't Will Ferrell's not hobnobbing around the locker room. Like Philly's they're two sort of different test cases for success. And that's awesome. And I want to see them head to head in the moment that they've both sort of been lusting after for, you could say their whole existence, but for Philly, we know that the first couple of years that was not realistic. That was
lusting
dreaming
after respectability would be the title of their
a good way. That's a good way of putting it.
years.
But here they are. Kalen, what's the best thing you saw from the conference finals?
I was gonna say, gosh, so you looked a little offended there with the no celebrities at the
Yeah,
match.
I
I thought I saw you on the sidelines.
Yeah, I know.
Were you wearing a $3,000 Prada jacket? Was that you? Did you have a jacket like that? Or
Yeah,
not?
obviously, Doyle. It's the Eastern Conference Finals. You got to go big. But it was
Correct.
Adidas. It was a $3,000 Adidas jacket.
Okay,
Exactly.
good.
Yeah.
Shout out James Harden brand.
Actually, you know what? That was the best thing I saw this weekend. Was the Prada jacket by Jim Curtin. How about that? I'm surprised David Goss even was allowed to stand next to that.
I was surprised too.
Yeah. Dave was like, Jim's like, hey, arm's length, if you don't mind, arm's length.
I mean, I follow a sneaker account on Instagram that's like a Jim Curtin sneaker account that like breaks down each different shoe he wears. He just brings heat every week, but I wasn't quite expecting it up top. You know, all the focus has been down at the feet, but this one was like, he was like, look, if they come with a mid shot, a close up, whatever, there's just going to be heat coming after you. The Prada jacket. In the locker room afterwards, I saw Jim posted today. This is my Instagram reporting.
we gotta get Kalen's Instagram reporting hit of the week sponsored. We absolutely have.
We need a drop. We need a drop.
Sponsored by Sky Sports.
How about by Prada? But he walked in the locker room and all the guys started throwing champagne and beer or whatever they found on him, Heineken 00s, and I was like, no, like not the jacket, dude, don't do this. Like,
I mean, is it legit? Do you take the jacket off before you go in there?
I feel like,
Jim,
I mean, half the guys have like the goggles on.
Part of the swag is knowing that you're like, ruin my Prada jacket.
I don't care.
Like,
really?
Yeah.
Just
I'm going to LA
drag
next
this
week,
through
baby.
the mud.
Yeah.
I feel he should at least put it on like StockX or eBay or Brailled or something.
I don't know. Send that to the MLS Hall of Fame. Do we have a separate MLS Hall of Fame?
Been working on that though behind the scenes.
Okay.
I'll take the Prada jacket. I'll put it in storage here in my probably in my basement. I cannot reveal. That would be documentation.
Now, the only thing I will say to add on to it was just like, I think that's a part of this Philly team is like the connection with the group and like just, I don't know. They have this, even when it's like they score goals, they run over to Jim. Like I feel like the connection with that group feels really Philly. It just feels like it's a little bit more of like, I don't know, even compared to LAFC, like Cherundolo, he doesn't always show as much emotion. I know that the game plan and the game mode is all there and the game model and all that, but it doesn't quite feel that same sort of, it feels like they're all like, we expected to be here. We followed the plan. And now we're reaching this final, we've reached our destination where we are going to win this match. And Philly's a little bit more like, all right, like, let's go for this. And like, they're ready to fight. They're ready to scrap. Not that LAFC isn't, they're definitely up for that too. But yeah, just a little bit different personalities.
I thought a great moment in the pregame with Kendra St. Alban was doing the pregame interviews with the coaches, and she interviewed Jim Curtin, and she was like, "Is this a revenge game?" And usually you expect coaches to dodge that, and he's like, "Yeah, that word's been thrown around a lot the past couple of weeks or however long, and it gets a little tiresome, but we don't mind it. We're Philadelphia, it is what it is for us. Yeah, sure." Like it was, I did not expect him to embrace it like that, but I think that it goes to the club ethos as you were describing it, Kalen, where it's like, yeah, we don't have to be as measured and buttoned up and, making sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. We're the Philadelphia blue collar workers. Like that's who we are.
Yeah,
we're going to the World Cup
in Prada jackets. Yeah,
in Prada jackets. Hey, management, man, come on.
Yeah.
Just to be clear though, in terms of being prepared, I've been to now a fair amount of teams celebrating trophies. All that stuff. Different clubs prepare different ways. I have never seen this before. When you go to a sports game in the concourse, there's like the established spaces, and there's like the pop-up hot dog stands and bars, and the bar's like a plastic bar with all the drinks on the top. This is what you have. They brought one on the field and set it up with the drinks sitting on top.
Oh, that's sick.
For the celebration, and was like, what is it that you'd like?
The coaches
have to get
this. We have to get this on the field for us recording post game.
Yeah, we
for
do.
ETR next week.
I've never seen a
Honors,
team
take
do that.
notes
They
here.
bring buckets of stuff. People go and grab stuff. This was the full bar setup right at the Union bench. It was It was genius.
Yeah, obviously, as Kalen said, Heineken 0.0s. Some Yinglings probably in the mix as well, just to, keep the local flavor going. What was the best thing you saw, Dave? Because you were there. We're like talking through all this. You were actually there. You were in the flesh. Arm's length from Jim Curtin.
I will start with saying I was at the NWSL final on Saturday. Sophia Smith's amazing. It was awesome. It was fun. You get to watch a final that's unique. Audi Field's an awesome event. So that was the best thing I saw this weekend. Second best was walking into the Philly Union game. Electric atmosphere behind a Danny Califf jersey. And you're like, yeah. And you walk around the stadium and there's Fred jerseys and Sebastian Letou and Richie Marquez and Brian Carroll, and you look up, and the Ring of Honor is literally just Sebastian Letou. And Philly has been so good for so long now. So long is an exaggeration, but I'd say since 2019, and dominant for large stretches of the last 3 years, including a Supporters Shield, that I sort of forgot where they came from, and how for a while I didn't think last night would be possible. Take away the on-field, the off-field atmosphere. Right. There were moments where it felt like it doesn't matter who's on the field for Philly. Like the city won't embrace them. The stadium won't be one of the ones you want to go to. They won't be one of those clubs that people are talking about constantly. And you think of all those years of like, is Richie Marquez an all-star? And, what will Ray Gaddis do this year? Because he'll play every game because he's the only player on the team that we can guarantee will be a part of this, and drafting 15 goalkeepers and signing Rice and Boley and losing homegrowns to other teams. And just, there was a lot of Saturday 7 p.m. games in the mud in the middle of whatever the name of the stadium was, with very few fans there, where you were like, what is Philly in this whole thing? What is Philly's atmosphere? Even the way Bedoya came in and the expectations on his shoulder of who he should be and where he is now. But so it was really cool to see those fans. And obviously this is a club that was started because their supporters group demanded a club in their city, right? After MLS had started, and the Sons of Ben and all they've put into this and all they've built. So to stand underneath them while they were celebrating Corey Burke, dominate NYCFC, guarantee a spot in MLS Cup, to hear the Dupe song, which used to kind of be a joke, and now is like a rallying cry for excellence when you lift a trophy in the Eastern Conference. It just felt like that whole shift, and to experience it with the people who were there. And, I've been down there for Big East quarterfinal games with 0 fans and just me in the stadium. So to be alongside 18 to 20,000 comrades was pretty cool.
The Sons of Ben thing is something like, it's a story I think we've got to make sure that we tell again later in the week, because I'm not sure if a lot of the fans who've come in the past 5-6 years since Atlanta invented MLS in 2017, I'm not sure how many of these new fans really know the story of like, Philadelphia was always going to get an MLS team. I don't think it was at the front of the line at 12 years ago. But the Sons of Ben actually organized and were like allowed and active and sort of irresistible fan group before the team existed, and they forced MLS's hand, and they got they did work to get ownership group and everything. They sped up the timeline for Philly existing, and it's a great story. I'm sure we've done like long forms on it in the past, but it's one that we have to make sure that we definitely tell that story again this week, because I hadn't even thought of it in years, David. Because you're right, Philadelphia has the Union have become you think of them, it just means excellence in MLS now, and you forget the history, even though you were there for a part of it.
There's a full documentary that's out, and I think it's free to stream. So just Google it, Sons of Ben documentary. I associated Union first with at the draft chanting, "Oh, Danny Mwanga." That was the Union for like 6 years in my mind.
Well, and keep going back. Peter Novak, all the issues that arose from some of that stuff. I mean, we didn't even say it like the old days. Like, these supporters were carrying around a coffin outside their stadium with one of their executives in it, being like, "Get out." Like that's how bad it went. Like that. I mean, that is a huge dichotomy from that moment.
The executive wasn't actually physically in the coffin.
Correct.
It was a metaphor.
Yes. Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I thought that was
I
clear.
didn't even know about that.
I don't know. I don't know how clear it was, Weeby.
Okay.
You guys want me to climb in where? You're going to carry me in there? Okay. No, not about that. All right. What is it for you, Doyle? What's the best thing you saw?
I'm going to go back to the other coast. When they signed Giorgio Chiellini, I thought And I think everybody thought, like, this is less about the regular season than it is about the MLS Cup playoffs. Like, they want to have a legendary defender, a legendary practitioner of the dark arts, legendary soccer IQ in these moments, in these games that are not often won with pretty soccer, that are won by just outsmarting the other guys a little bit. And then he didn't play the first game. And then this game, it was like, oh, is he going to be able to play? Is he really carrying a knock? It turns out he was. He has some sort of calf injury. He only played the first 45 minutes. But if you look back at the opening goal, Giorgio Chiellini made his mark, and he made it with the type of high IQ, a little bit of dark arts type of play that in the past, LAFC have not had in those moments. That goal off a corner kick, he sets a Rudy Gobert style screen assist, takes out 2 Austin defenders. I'm not sure they would have, gotten to that cross anyway. And Moussa Djite being completely asleep was the bigger issue for Austin. But it was the type of winning play that LAFC have consistently not had in the bag in these games. And that play alone justifies the Chiellini signing as far as I'm concerned. He made that play. I'm not going to say he made the goal happen, because again, it was more Djite falling asleep than it was, Chiellini setting an all-time great pick. But it's these little details that he nailed in his 45 minutes that really helped put LAFC on the front foot. And the other part of it is, like, I went back and I watched the first half because I was so confused about how Jesus Murillo was getting so many chances to just pick a ball over the top. Like, he had, I think, 4 to Boango, 1 to Vela, 1 to Cifuentes. And it was because with Chiellini out there, Austin was selling out to prevent any distribution from Chiellini. They said, we're going to let Murillo hit those passes. And he did. And the play that led to that corner kick that made it 1-0 LAFC, that came on a long ball over the top from Murillo to Boanga. Look, we've crushed those signings. And I think that the fact that they have not been home runs by any stretch, I think is going to make teams in the future reassess how much they want to tinker in the summer, even if a player with global stature in the sense of Chiellini or Bale, even if a guy like that is available. But
what player could be on that level?
Well, I don't think Miami's going to have many doubts when it comes time next July for whoever they may be signing. But that play justified it. That first half justified it. Having him out there in that game made it infinitely more likely that LAFC were going to come out the other side with a trip to MLS Cup. And that's the way it played out.
Can I just say, and I already kind of did my best thing I saw in the sense of the 2 best teams being here, seeing Mahalo Poku score the 3rd in that game after we talked, we were setting over-unders on Gareth Bale at like 12.5, and anybody who went under were like, oh, you're crazy. How could that not be true? And it ends up being this guy that they went and sort of plucked, not out of nowhere. Like, they scouted him, they found him, they developed him, they gave him opportunities. He clearly fits in with the culture there. I don't know if anybody's been monitoring the stuff between him and Kellen Acosta. It's been pretty hilarious all year long. But for him to get that 3rd goal and for him to be the one that seals it, not Gareth Bale, not Christian Teo, not Dennis Bouanga, not these guys they spent millions on or have these huge global profiles, as you said, Mahalo Poku. Like, that is a special moment, I think, in this league. Or Corey Burke on the flip side. In Philly, having those guys that we've watched, we've seen grow, we've sort of like developed these relationships with, and there are relations. It's like an MLS insider thing. Now that's really, really special as well. All right, let's dive into these and break them down. We've already spent 20 minutes just riffing here, so we'll certainly find more to get into. And let's start on the East Coast. Union 3, NYCFC 1. I wrote in here, is celebrating the Eastern Conference Championship by popping bottles a premature move, but I think, Kalen, you've convinced me that it is not. It's just a beautiful reflection of the culture that Philly has, and no way do I think it's doesn't indicate that they're not looking ahead to LA. They just have a beautiful moment in club history, and they want to celebrate it together. Does Jose Martinez want Jim Curtin to have a long press conference? Hell no, Jim. Get in the locker room. I'm dragging you in while I wear ski goggles. But Doyle, tell us the story of this game, because NYCFC had a foothold, and then they had the opening goal, and then that foothold just disappeared in what felt like a second.
Yeah, I think the first half was pretty even. I would say that NYCFC controlled possession, whereas Philly were controlling where on the field the game was played, which is not unusual. If you had told me that's how the first half would play out, I would not have been at all shocked. But then in the second half, Philly, having to change out Bedoya for McGlynn, I think they lost a little bit of their rhythm out of halftime, or not rhythm. Maybe lost a little bit of their urgency coming out of halftime, and there started to be more gaps. And like weirdly, this gap came off of a goal kick. If you go back and you watch that first goal from NYCFC, it starts literally with Sean Johnson on just like a regular goal kick, and NYCFC have set up so that they've pulled the entire Philly diamond to one side of the field, and Sean John just like pings a diagonal to the other side of the field, and Tanner Holmes on it, and suddenly it's on. And that was that was just a beautiful NYCFC style goal, man. Like they do that very often. It starts from Sean Johnson, and now that Tanner Holmes is back and fit, a lot of it goes through Tinnerholm, and that Maxi is maybe the smartest player in the league, so he's going to be trailing and making that run, and he laced it home. And at that point, I really expected that NYCFC were going to walk out of there, because they've been so good over the past 5 weeks or so. At once they get their foot on your throat, they're not letting up.
So I don't know how this came across on TV, and I watched the game back after, but it's already in my head, so maybe it didn't. But one of the things I thought was key to the first half was Sean John's ability to kill the momentum of the game anytime he had to restart play. And it wasn't time wasting to get to penalties. It was just to kill Philly, jumping on them and jumping on them and jumping on them. And he did the full performance of, he couldn't hear Alan Chapman tell him that he might get a yellow card. So then he had to come closer, and then they had to talk about it, but he totally understands and he'll take it quickly now, but then he has to reset the ball once he gets back. And on top of that, they started splitting the center backs, and then he would wave them up every time and wave them to the side. And so I'm just saying that in one, I thought it was the performance of the first half was just Sean John understanding what his team needed and how to control the moment. And two, sort of to set that up, in that he kept sucking them in, and then he pings that quick ball to Tinnerholm the first time he took a goal kick. I mean, the crowd's booing him every time he took a goal kick, and then now he's ready to go, right? Tinnerholm's open. Oh, yeah, no, now I can go quickly, and he hits it perfectly. And then from there, NYCFC, they're elite in possession. But I just thought that should be touched on, from the first half, and I don't think it's a mistake that was what led to that first goal.
Yeah, and then a second later, not even a minute and a half later, Andre Blake makes one of the most spectacular saves you will ever see, and you're like, oh, Philly's not dead yet, are they?
That's where I was going. Because when the first goal happens for NYCFC, I was like, oh wait, Andre Blake can get scored on. I did not know that was a thing. It was just that, and that was a testament to how well worked that goal was. And Santi does a good job of just kind of knocking it back to Maxi, who's just been clutch in the playoffs, and continues that. We didn't even know if he was going to play in this game. So him to step up again in a big way. But yeah, I felt like that save changed the dynamic of the game. And it was funny. I felt like it gave Philly some energy again. And it's weird to say, because we've talked about Blake in so many different ways, but in some ways, I feel like him making big saves gives the team confidence and gives them some energy to go the other way. And I think it was maybe 5 minutes later where they get the goal, and then the next one comes in pretty quick succession. So but Blake, that save was ridiculous. I think it was Collins who gets up there and knocks it down. A good ball in there from O'Toole. But just to be able to get low like that, had to get the little shot out. Good playoff.
He's legit. He's legit good, by the way.
Get Kevin's first name in there. Good. All right.
Yeah.
There you go. Respect. 2 names. Maybe could just go by 1 now. I don't know.
I know.
I like that.
Kev.
Kev. Just put Kev on the back.
He's on De Bruyne.
I like that.
Hey man, Keaton Parks just goes by Keaton. Why not Kevin?
I know. But yeah, that save was insane. And I feel like that was, for me, what was always going to be the difference with Philadelphia was, yes, they can get out and put numbers up, right? And we saw that where they come out and get goal after goal. But the defense and the game winner in the back, I mean, if that goes 2-0 there, it's lights out. Like, NYCFC is not going to let that one go. But I think the fact that they were able to, like I said, make a save that the great ones make saves that you're not supposed to make. Good ones make them the one you expect. The great ones make that one save that you're not supposed to make. Andre Blake, I keep saying, makes pretty much all of them. But in this one, he let one by. I was like, okay, like, hats off to NYCFC. But that next one, he stepped up. And I thought that really kind of changed the momentum of the game.
Seems like Davey's kind of getting what he's always deserved. And look, it's weird to say that about a guy who has 3 Goalkeeper of the Year awards. But Philly have been relentless in pounding the Andre Blake MVP narrative. Like, they've believed it in their core this whole time, even if, and I'll raise my hand here, I wasn't necessarily convinced of that as a, like a league-wide story. Like, this is Andre's moment. And when you look at Philly and you think about all these little stories within the big story, Andre Blake being this guy, a number 1 overall pick that, maybe at the time some people in the club didn't even think made sense. That's just a special thing to watch come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's part of the position, right? Every goalkeeper knows they're going to be underappreciated. And when you make mistakes, it sucks. And when you're good, it's great. And Kalen, I give you a ton of credit. I think last year you were sort of one of the first people to be like, yeah, Philly's a top team and their superstar is in goal. And that's acceptable. That's a way to win. And he is a match winner. And Doyle, we sort of talked about it last Monday where I said Pantomas didn't lose the game for Montreal, but Sean John won it for NYCFC. Andre Blake won it for Philly in making that save. And that's something few players are capable of. And then, they're chanting MVP for him and he throws the ball out for the second goal, right to Mbaizo, starts the play. Like, he is everything that they need. The full field sprint from him, I didn't notice it in person, but I realized now I was standing behind an empty goal. He ran the full field to celebrate with Corey Burke after the third goal to the left corner and then comes back. And, they've talked about it over the playoffs of the demands he has for his back line and how good they are and how consistent they are. But he is a legitimate match winner. He can take a game in which you do not deserve to win or you are not in, keep you in it or win it for you. And that's very rare. And I think we had this convo, but when you look at his MLS career, he can be the greatest goalkeeper in MLS history. Is he on his day better than every other goalkeeper on their day? I don't know. You can have that debate, right? You can bring up Brad Friedel and Tony Meola and Tim Howard and Nick Raimondo and whoever else you want to talk about. But over the course of his career, because he's not done yet, like, this isn't the end, but when you look at everything he's done for Philly and the trophies he's going to win and the Goalkeeper of the Year awards and the All-Stars and the way the team is built, he probably can stand on top and say he has the best MLS goalkeeping career, which is a testament. And I talked to someone yesterday where it's like, I kind of can't believe he's still there. Like, what's been going on in the rest of the world? But I'm glad that we still have him.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So what happened, though, by the way, we've kind of buried this lead for NYCFC. You have a 1-0 lead and then just straight
Corey Burke
snoozing.
Corey Burke's what happened.
But Corey Burke came in, but like, what are you doing on the first goal?
Yeah,
Corey Burke.
There's a free Corey. What?
Yeah,
There's a free kick, and everybody's like, "Well, Corey, how are you doing, man? It's great to see you on the field." Like they fell asleep. They gave up 2 goals in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was really bad, right? It was, and it's especially bad because it was Thiago Martins, who's their DP center back, who just like completely loses sight, like does not even think about what's happening behind him on that first goal. But this was a genius level play from Julian Carranza. I'm assuming he and Glesnes had some sort of eye contact.
I was gonna say, you got to give Glesnes a shout on this.
Yeah,
I think I heard Corey Burke pass the word between the two.
Right. Corey Burke did it.
Yeah.
But that run, the timing of it, the weight of the pass, and then that clever finish to the back post where he kind of cut it. Like that,
and it was his first touch, right? He doesn't touch the ball.
I'm pretty sure it was his first touch, and it was his first goal since August. Like, I love Julian Carranza. He has not been a clinical finisher, but he is not. He's not a guy that you bet on in those 1v1 situations. But it was just absolutely brilliant from him, and you could see it staggered NYCFC. They lost their minds, and then 2 minutes later. again, it was Glesnes. Like his read to start the second goal. He just charges 15 yards off the back line to intercept a pass and then drives it forward and gives the Union that momentum getting into the attacking third, right? And when NYCFC got strung out like that, which didn't happen in the first half, by the way, when they get strung out like that, they have to scramble, and their back line is not great at scrambling, especially with, Justin Hack was put in a tough situation, and I thought he held up well through an hour, but he had 270 minutes this year, and he's going up against a front line that scored 72 goals on the season. So they were able to push into the attacking third at pace and with width and get NYCFC retreating and scrambling. And when that happens, your midfielders have time and space. And what we have seen is that when Jack McGlynn has time and space, he's going to cut you up with his passing. And of course, if you combine passing like that with just this commitment to be dynamic and complementary in your off-ball runs, which is everything that this Philly attack is predicated upon, you end up with goals. And this was, again, another, that header from Julian Carranza to tee up Gazdag for the second goal. That was just absolutely brilliant. That was completely understanding the shape of the defense and how out of whack they were, and that Gazdag was making that run. It was like the first goal of the game was just such a prototypical NYCFC goal. This goal, the second Philadelphia goal, the third goal of the game, was just such a prototypical Philadelphia goal, where it's like they've got the back line scrambling a bit. They're making 2-3 good runs at once. One of the midfielders has a little bit of space, picks his head up, boom, 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 back of the net. And that was it. That was it. Like, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, there's no way NYCFC is coming back from this.
And on the Carranza header point, there aren't guys who score 14, 15 goals in this league that make that play. They're going to try and at best bounce it in front of the goalkeeper, try and get something on frame bouncing to see if there's a rebound. And he's willingly knows the Gazdag run's coming and he's going to make the play there. But I said Corey Burke, obviously he was phenomenal on the third goal, but I genuinely think his presence on the field, his physicality and his commitment to just challenging Hack threw everyone off, because if you watch the game, Hack's constantly talking to Martins, and a lot of it is Martins being like, that's fine. That's okay. Like, you watch Burke's first run, right? Because his first play of the game is the ball over the top, and he tries to get on the end of it, and he gets between Martins and Hack, and they're talking about it. And I think Martins is starting to focus on what Hack's doing to help him get through the challenge that he's about to deal with. And Collins then is pulled in a little bit more. And I think that genuinely threw off, on top of Parks coming in, which changes your shape. Right now, Maxi's higher up the field. It's different personnel. I think all of that combined for NYCFC in a moment, which then Philly was clinical with the opportunities they got. But I think all of that was a factor. And then from there, Burke just took over and was the best player on the field. And
full freight train on the third.
He
full
ran,
Corey Burke.
He ran on the field. And I said, oh, you could feel the presence when he ran on. He sprinted down the middle of the field to Hack on the sub and was literally guy in pickup being like, mouse in the house, barbecue chicken, let's go. That's what it felt like.
That's why we need Goss on the sidelines, guys.
Mouse in the house. We got a mouse in the house. Got a mouse in the house. He did a Hack on the goal.
The one thing I would never say about this NYCFC team, this year or last, is that, one, they're not tuned in mentally, which we saw on the set piece goal, heads up play by Glesnes and Philly, or that they were out physicaled. Or I don't know if that's the way you say it, but you know what I mean.
We'll accept it. We'll allow it.
They got bodied, or they got bullied, right? And that happened in this game. And I thought missing Chanot was big. And this is where I was talking more about, as the playoffs go on, that number one seed starts to play into it works later in the tournament as opposed to at the beginning, which I think can be a disadvantage. But not having Chanot, they had Maxi, you saw how important that was. But not having Chanot, I thought was big in this one, because even on the second goal, Hack falls into a little bit of a position where he doesn't quite recognize the danger of the ball coming back across from the Carranza header. And then on the last one, he just gets run over by Corey Burke. Justin Hack did very well in the game against Montreal. He came off the bench in a tough circumstance. I think he was prepared to come in at that moment and rightfully deserved to come into the team and wanted to keep his place. They wanted to keep their shape and their formation. And I thought he did a good job, and especially in that first one. But as the tournament went on, not having that physicality, that presence where you think maybe Chanel sniffs one out or understands the danger and can find that moment to clear it out. And that partnership with Collins, it's just such a relationship position. We'll get to that later when we talk about LAFC and how they're handling the center back question marks that they still have. But I think NYCFC missed him big time yesterday.
Maybe just somebody to be aware during that substitution that preceded the set piece as well, of just like, hey, stay switched on. Hey, here's where that run might come. Hey, be ready.
I'm sure you guys hammered this convo last night, but it was system over personnel, right? Keaton Park's the starting 11 player in Major League Soccer on NYCFC, maybe even in the national team. Like, that's what we're talking about. He picked Hack as the third center back, who's not a 21-year-old who doesn't play and has never played that position outside of the 25, 30 minutes that Kai Kamara pulled him around last week, over going with that, and he being Nick Cushing. I'm not saying he was wrong, because I don't know what playing a flat four with Parks in a double pivot would have looked like, and if it would have worked. I think one question mark around NYC is if you're going to play three center backs, you got to have more than three on the roster. Tavon Gray's injury hurts, but okay, that's 3.5. That's one question mark, which is on the club and not on Cushing. And the other is Cushing's decision. And he went away from it midway through the first half in Montreal. He went back to it. They won. And he chose to go back to it today. And not everything a coach does that loses is wrong, but that's sort of the decision he's going to stew on for the rest of the offseason.
Before I turn to NYCFC.
Even still, I'll say Martins had a chance on that tackle on Burke too. I'm not sure I would like to go into a tackle with Burke.
No.
To be honest.
Acevedo did as well. Acevedo gets schooled as well.
Both of those, looking back on that one, you look at and you say, you got to put like Eastern Conference, it's 2-1. Come on, like put something in there. But as you said, Burke, he's going to come out with a lot of those.
The freight train's coming. Lay yourself down on the tracks, all right? Like, let's see if you can slow this thing down. Before we switch to NYCFC and get a little like look ahead for them, Dave, none of us were there on the field, able to hear, see, experience sort of Alejandro Bedoya's first half. It was pretty clear that he wasn't going to be able to go. Like 30 minutes in, it was like, okay, they got to either get this guy off the field now or find a way to get to halftime and preserve those sort of sub windows. What did you think of the decision to start him? And what did you see from him up close and personal?
I think we saw a guy, and I'm not sure if it was the injury or now you're talking about how sharp are you? I think you saw him pass out of easy crossing moments and sort of make some decisions that were questionable. But I would guess, obviously with the result, that Jim Curtin would do it again, because on a night like that, with the stage being different, you're the favorite now, you're talking about revenge, there's a lot of big moments going on. Alejandro Bedoya is their guy. He's their captain. He's their leader. He's the emotional leader. He's the loudest cheer in the lineup announcement for the fans. Every time he touches the ball, everyone sort of reacts to him in the building. Having Alejandro Bedoya on the field yesterday was paramount to Philadelphia getting a win. And you don't know what the game states are going to be, and I don't think it's 100% you're going to bring him in. So if you're going to have to play him, and you have to play him to win because of what he means to your team, whether he's the best option on the field at that moment or not, you had to do it from the start. And I thought both from the way the game played out and what we've seen, I think Curtin's comments about McGlynn are right. He struggles when the game's chaotic. He's not the high-pressing, super athletic Philadelphia Union player. Bring him in when the game fits him. And that was once the game settles in, and then he can be his best. And I thought he struggled at times against Cincinnati, but as the game went along, he got better. Okay, you take away him struggling, put it on Bedoya's shoulders, and then a young player like that doesn't have to react to it. He can sort of come in at halftime and play clean.
All right, let's turn the page for NYCFC. Doyle, take this on, man. We got free agents in Sean Johnson, Alex Collins, and Anton Tinnerholm. Those are foundational pieces for this club. Maxi has an option for next year. Not sure if they'll exercise it. I believe he'll be 36, but still having plenty of vintage Maxi moments. Nick Cushing is not for sure going to be the manager. He says, of course, I want to come back next year. He takes responsibility for the results, whatever happens, but pointed out the exceptional sort of recovery that they had at the end. This is a big offseason for NYCFC. What do you think will transpire? What should transpire?
I mean, what should transpire is they should try to keep everybody that you just mentioned. That includes all 3 free agents. That includes Nick Cushing, who look, this team for the first 15 games under Nick Cushing struggled badly. But then he kind of figured things out, and maybe he was able to get their ear a little bit better down the stretch. And from everything I've heard, they still he's still their guy. City Football Group is he came through City Football Group. They do not let their own go for a bad 15-game stretch. So I think he'll be back. But there are, look at what LAFC did last winter. LAFC rebuilt their team by going out on the market in MLS and bringing in guys like Ilie, bringing in Kellen Acosta. Kellen was a trade, but Ilie was a free agent, and teams are going to learn that lesson. And Alex Collins was the best center back in the league this year. All due respect to Jack Elliott and Jacob Lesnes, who are both awesome. But I thought if Collins had stayed healthy the entire season and had played actually center back for the entire season, he was going to get my vote for Defender of the Year. Somebody's going to offer him Walker Zimmerman money. Sean Johnson, I don't know if he'll get paid an incredible amount, but Toronto need a goalkeeper. Atlanta need a goalkeeper. He's from Atlanta. He's going to be sought after in free agency. Anton Tinnerholm. Imagine Cincinnati's attack with Anton Tinnerholm at right wing back. Imagine that. Could they score 100 goals? It's like that kind of upgrade. So they're going to have to work to keep their own guys. The other thing, Santi Rodriguez, he is there on a 2-year loan. He's basically the heir apparent to Maxi, except he might not be back either. So they have all these things to weigh. And on top of it, I think they have to suss out whether Talles Magno can really be a number 9, because to me, he's just not. This team is so much better when it's Eber or an Eber style, true center forward who does not need the ball to feed. That is such a big thing, because everybody else in that midfield on the wings, they want the ball to feed. Gabby Pereira can do both. I love Gabby Pereira. He can stretch the field as well, but when he's doing something wrong, it's because he's coming back to the ball and he wants it to feed. So they have to figure all that out. As David said, they have to add more center back depth. They have to hope that Thiago Martin steps forward in year 2. But even if they just hit 80% of it, this is still a 50 to 55 point team. Mm-hmm. And this is still a team that is one move away from being a 65 point, oh God, they really might steamroll everybody and win MLS Cup. They have the most points in MLS since 2016. And now they have 2 very credible playoff runs under their belt, one of which produced a title. They have a very credible CCL run under their belt. By the way, they won't have to deal with CCL at the start of the season next year. There's no reason to think. And also, Maxi does not look cooked. That guy is 35 years old and he was injured. He was best player on the field for 65 minutes, man. So I don't see any reason to think that NYCFC is going to screw this up. They'll be back next year. They'll be really good.
All right, let's turn the page to a team that was that juggernaut this year. LAFC won the Shield on wins, most points, but most wins as well. That's how you get there. 3-0 winners against Austin, Kalen. We will talk about the PK here in just a second, but that's burying the lead, which is that LAFC smacked them. Austin didn't really show up in this game and just sort of got dominated by LAFC. How did they do it? How did the black and gold do it?
I mean, they just suffocated them. They just came and were just all over them. They just, set the pace high. The tempo was very high in this one. Austin, I think to their credit, tried to play the way they wanted to play, keep the ball and build out the back, possess. And the difficult part was that Austin turned over the ball in some bad spots, which led to LAFC coming right at them. And then actually when they were able to break pressure even, and there were some times where they were able to get in more advanced positions, LAFC just countered and just got them in good positions as well too. So it was like really a pick your poison, where LAFC knew that if they were to press high and cause problems for them, good things were going to happen. And if Austin happened to break through somehow, well, then you just use your weapons where you get the ball in transition, you get the ball to Vela. You get the ball to Vela, and you then go the other direction. And then the other part was, what we saw was just the way they were able to stretch the field. And this was more when Austin did get in more advanced positions. They just left so much space in behind, and we're just not able to pick up those deep lying runners coming from the outside in. It was just over and over and over again. And the center backs just did not recognize it, or were not able to cope with, honestly, really good movement, and the timing of the runs and the balls in behind were excellent, which was another issue because Austin couldn't really get any pressure. They just left the center backs with just acres of time and space to pick their head up, look for the runners, and then it was like running routes just in behind, just like
we get a post. Hey, Dennis, hit me with the post here. Skinny post.
And Stuver was the one, like the safety in that position, trying to come off his line to stop Bouanga from
and that's not his
in.
game. And that's not his game.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd like knead it out one time. Credit to him, get whatever you can on it. But
he got beat one time as well.
Yeah. He did, and then I think Cascante got a touch on that one. But it was desperate defending at times for Austin, and it just felt inevitable as to when LAFC was going to break through. Ironically, it was 2 set pieces. It's now their 3 set piece goals in 2 games. I think they had rightly ID'd that they were able to have an edge there against the Galaxy, and they get the late winner there. And it happened again in this one. And not to dig too hard on Austin here, but the defending from Gite on that first one. I know Doyle was looking at the Chiellini double team down front, but if you go back and look at that one, I mean, Gite is just it is really irresponsible defending. And you go and you say, okay, you get your name written up on the board before us. This is your assignment, and you're going against Arango, who scores the winner in El Tráfico to go to the next round, right? And you're saying, okay, this is their leading scorer. This guy is dangerous at all times, can sniff out where the ball is, wherever it is. And it's not like one thing where you get beat and he makes a move on you, or you get screened or picked or whatever. He's not even goal side. Like, he starts on the wrong side of Arango. So for me, it's like, if that was part of the issue, I think, is Gite didn't really have the trust of the manager throughout the season. Only 3 starts, I think, ended up earning his way into the team. And, Rudy wasn't quite there. I think there was a question mark over who was going to start. It was expected that Gite was going to get the nod after the goal and the good performance last week. But then it's like that inconsistency of knowing every manager I've played for, if you put somebody in, especially in a game like this, you need to know what you're going to expect. And I think that you don't know what you're going to get there. So some days it's great. Some days it's not great. I'm not trying to harp on it, but that's a big play there. And you go down 1-0 like that. It's like, you're now going you're up against this team that doesn't give up. Once they go up, they don't give up goals. They just kill you and kill off games. And so that was a big one for me, as far as you're looking back and saying, we gave up a set piece and it was in that way. That's tough to look back on.
Yeah, and LAFC have been fantastic on set pieces, and they get a ton of them. That's part of it, right? And we're seeing these teams now, like Austin, that are high volume possession teams, saying, yeah, we're going to get fouled a lot and we're going to get a lot of corner kicks. What are we going to do with them? But you start prepping for LAFC set pieces. You start with Chiellini, if he's going to play. Isn't Arango second?
Yeah.
So now on the coaching staff, you're going to take your least reliable attacking player and you're going to sign him Arango. That also feels like a bit of a mistake. And listen, I thought Urruti was awful in his defending on the own goal as well. And I know, yeah, it's his first touch on the field and you feel bad for him, fine, but he's holding on to a teammate physically who's holding on to an LAFC player in the 6. None of it made sense. None of it was properly done. Outside of that, though, this is the best game LAFC's played since they signed Chiellini and Bale. Like, this is LAFC. There's a lot that goes into that. I think the biggest part that goes into it is the best players and collection of talent in MLS playing for each other. And that's what Bob Bradley was able to do at his peak. And that's what Steve Cherundolo did the first 3 or 4 months. It's players making runs where they know they're not going to get the ball to open up space, even though they're elite goal scorers, even though they're MVP candidates, even though they're DPs. It's players knowing that they can get the ball later. It's players being willing to share, and the anticipation, that's the part where you get into like, okay, they hit their flow. Everyone knows what they do. And then they brought in a bunch of players and the lineup got thrown around and now they had to find it again, but they did find it. And I wasn't sure that was going to be possible. I wasn't sure we'd see the team we saw yesterday again this year for LAFC because it hadn't happened. And there's no guarantee you're going to peak at this moment. Just, you talk about the runs out of those wide spots. Arango's so willing to just pull center backs and just kept making the run to come deep, knowing he wasn't going to get the ball in that moment. That's your leading goal scorer. That's your number 9 who's saying, yeah, I'll open up space for Bouanga and Vela. And he did it over and over again, and he got his reward as he deserved. But that's LAFC at their best. Constant motion, constant flow. And they did that in this game. And then to Kalen's point, they've added the how do we be direct in transition when we are defending a little bit deeper. But Austin wasn't in this game for 45 minutes. I mean, they weren't in the stadium. Yeah. And it was LAFC. If they finished, it was over in the first half, and they didn't. That's soccer. That's how it happens. But like, this was LAFC at their best.
Austin weren't in the stadium for 90 minutes.
Technically, no, I would say somewhere between 95 and 98, given you have additional added time. So I just want to make sure that we include those.
Yeah, and like this is no disrespect to Austin. They had they finished second in the regular season. They finished second in the Western Conference in the regular season. They finished second in the Western Conference in the playoffs. I think they overperformed. I think that if they play at this level again next year, they won't be quite so good. But if they get a couple of additions right, then they'll be in good shape to be a 55-point team that actually has the underlyings and the eye test of a 55-point team. But they have, and I know that like we're going away from, we're already going to the postmortem of Austin
FC. For it. Dig in.
But like this game was so emphatic. It feels like that's the bigger takeaway. Gite has been there a year and a half. He does not look like a starter, and he really has not improved. They signed Emiliano Rigoni as a DP midway through the season, really the final third of the season. He was the worst player on the field. He hurt that team. They would have been so much better off if they had Ethan Finlay out there on that right wing. I don't think it would have changed the outcome, but they would have at least created a little bit of penetration, which there just never was from Rigoni. I clipped a moment early in the second half. Rigoni gets the ball on the right wing with Diego Palacios in his wake. Diego Palacios trailing him. Rigoni was so slow that Palacios caught up to him in 2 steps. Rigoni turned the play backwards and just started dribbling backwards towards central midfield. Dodged one tackle, dodged another tackle, still going backwards, then lost the ball. And that led to an LAFC break going in the other direction. Could have been a goal. Wasn't, but like, that's your DP. And then in my group chat, one of the other people said, he did the exact same thing in the 4th minute. And I went back, or 5th minute, and went back and I looked, he did the exact same thing in the 5th minute. So like this team deserves a ton of credit for getting so much out of Driussi, getting so much out of Stuver, Diego Fagundes. Julio Cascante has been a level above what I thought he could ever be in MLS. Nick Lima had a very good year, turning John Gallagher into like a pretty good attacking left back in MLS. Denny Pereira took a massive step forward. He and Alex Ring, I think, have a very good partnership. Maxi Urruti, he's never going to be a high-level goal scorer. But I'll tell you what, if Maxi Urruti was starting, those center backs would not have had a field day in the first half, picking their pass again and again and again. He adds so much to that team defensively. All those guys are key parts. All those guys came from within MLS. If you look at their signings that they've made in the 2 years of their existence, they've really only hit on 2 of their imports. Driussi, obviously a Grand Slam home run, like one of the great signings of recent times. Other than that, they've missed on all 3 of their DPs. They signed Thomas Pochettino, who was out of the lineup and out of the team by the middle of last year. Cecilio Dominguez was not good last year. He's gone. Rigoni is their other DP.
By the way, $4 million fee on Rigoni, signed through 24, options for 25 and 26.
That's brutal. Like that is like this guy made the team worse every time he stepped on the field. The other one that they hit on, I thought Ruben Gabrielson had a very good season. I think I had all MLS fourth team when we did that bit a month ago. Like those
wasn't a bit, Doyle.
Was it a bit?
Genuine.
That wasn't a bit. That was extremely
maybe to
serious.
go so deep, maybe to do so many rounds. Yeah.
But like they have such a promising foundation, but I have zero confidence in their ability to go out and identify and add the high level difference makers who can take some of the burden off of Driussi. And like in so much, like the number of players in MLS history who have had back-to-back years as good as the one Driussi just put together is like 3. Like you can't count on him being this good again. So they have so much work to do this offseason. They might have to eat another DP contract, or maybe they can buy Alex Ring down. But like it's just.
But
like,
if they do that, they have 3 U22 players, to go back to what you're talking
right,
about.
So they would
use
have
of designations, and then Rodney Redis is one of them. They've gotten almost nothing out of him. Chite's one, and then Kolmanic is one, and Gallagher won that spot this year.
Yeah. So like there's a lot to be excited about. But you saw the difference between a pretty good team with a pretty good roster and a pretty good game plan that largely overachieved this year, thanks to the greatness of their MVP candidate and their goalkeeper, and the fact that they have a structure, and a great team with like legitimate match winners that can beat you in different phases of play and playing in different gears. And like Austin was just never in it, nowhere close.
Sure. Okay. Only thing I would say is, yes, I understand they ran into the LAFC at the very end, right? But if you think about what this Austin team has done in 2 years, to me, it's pretty mind blowing, honestly, because this wasn't one where it was like Atlanta United the first year and then they take a step forward the next and win MLS Cup. This was the team at the basement, at the very bottom. They could not score a goal. I think they scored like 25 goals last year.
No, they scored 23 in their final 16 games once Driussi arrived. So not to the level that they were this year, but they were better going forward once Driussi arrived.
Towards the end.
Can't cover Doyle. He's always got that stat in the back end, man. He's like, well, last 16 games is
still, to me, like to go out and get the player, like to go out and get these players like Stuver, and they've got the guy, they've ID'd, Pereira, the guys in the, and then you even mentioned some of the guys like Gallagher and have Fernandez as well. Like these guys have been really, really good. Driussi, I have no question as to whether he's going to replicate what he did. Like for me, he's like, I know he was invisible and like locked down completely by this LAFC midfield. But a lot of that came down to just the way the game went. But I have a lot more positive thoughts on like where this Austin project is going, and to be one game away from MLS Cup against, one of the best team, the best team in the league, maybe one of the best teams, who knows? Like, they've literally going to potentially do the double. I don't know. I have more faith that they can go out and they do have a couple contracts they need to shift and move, but if they go out and get a number 9 and they go out and get maybe someone else to balance, I think that's what they're hoping Rigoni was going to was to balance that left side that is a little stronger and where Driussi likes to drift a little bit. If they get a little more balance on that other side, I could see this team being right back in it again next year.
Do you focus on, like, if you're Austin, don't you just call up Alex Collins? Feel like, do you want to come here? We will give you as much as anybody in the league can give you.
I think there's a couple. I like the idea of going out and getting. We've seen it more from a value perspective of guys like Ilie in the past, or the free agent market where you see it. But I think the high end MLS proven guy like that would make a lot of sense. The other name that I think about, we talk about DPs. It seems like we just do this every show where we go to Joseph Martinez, but I don't know if you put him in that Austin team, like what is motivated Joseph playing in Austin with Driussi and like that attack?
I could see that being pretty lethal. So there's a couple of options out there that could see like a big move like that they might be able to get a guy and make a big difference.
So I fall in between the two of you. I agree with Doyle in that there is a big red flag with a lot of these signings. I agree with Kalen that there's more ceiling to be explored. The problem is between those two that they don't really have the roster designations and the roster spots to go get another DP. Because of their use of 3 U22 players, they have to have Alex Ring or a similar player as that sort of convertible TAM-esque DP. So there are some big sort of like logistical questions within how you build the cap and how your roster spots are taken. I just want to also throw out Ilya Sanchez is being paid more than $1 million by LAFC this year. So he is a free agent signing, but not one that easily fits within a salary cap. So there is a little bit of work to do, I think, for Claudio Reyna and for Josh Wolf to look around and say, okay, how do we improve this team? How do we fix these spots while we have some contracts locked in place and we don't have a ton of flexibility, at least from the outside looking in, on the way that we structure deals and how we can fill things. But look, there's no doubt this season, what they've done, the way the game model has progressed, the faith they had in that, both in the model and in Josh Wolf, the culture that they built, which look, we've made a little bit of fun of. I've had fun with Austin about the like everybody's doubting us thing. It worked for them. Like that locker room was very together. It worked. How do they then go into year 3? I think that is a pretty big question for them. What do we think about the PK?
Can I just throw in real quick before we go on? For any Austin fan who's like, oh no, Rigoni sounds like such a mess. Just go listen to our comments about Hani Mukhtar and Chicharito and Sebastian Blanco and Daniel Gazdag, and you'll sort of potentially.
Are you drafting him?
Say brand the theorem here. You got.
I'm just saying,
brand the theorem.
There's a reason that I don't give up on guys when they arrive on August 31st, and have to hit the ground running in the playoffs in a country they've never been to with a team they've never played for. So there's a reason they brought him in. There's a reason he performed well in Brazil. I thought yesterday was a shocking performance from him. I'm still surprised Josh Wolf chose to make so many changes over the course of the 3 playoff games away from the best 11 that was their best 11, especially after the way it played against Dallas. But I'm just saying there's a bit of a track record of Valencia as well. They thought Valencia would be the starter, hence why they tried to start him against RSL. So that gives you a little more depth and an ability to change the game as well as the season goes along. Owen Wolf, you hope, takes a step, and this is a team in one of the soccer hotbeds of the planet that just started its academy and has its first class coming through.
PK call. Anybody think that was not a PK? Was not called on the field. Armando Villarreal was recommended to the monitor by VAR Tim Ford. He again said not a PK. For me, he refereed a game that he wasn't tight with it. It wasn't like every little thing was getting a whistle. It was physical, and I think that's the sort of game he wanted to referee. But I thought that was a PK for sure. I thought that was a penalty. It was a foul.
You could have called it. Yeah, he could have called it, but it wasn't for sure, especially the way the game was being reffed. He wasn't calling that foul anywhere on the field all game long. If that had happened in midfield, he was not going to call it. If it had happened over by touchline, he was not going to call it. So definitely not going to call it in the box, especially when Fagundes took a kind of a heavy touch. The ball is getting away from him, and then he embellished. So I think there's a little bit of justice in that point, in the sense of though I do think it's a foul. He's taking a touch away from goal. He's not going to control. And was there embellishment? A little bit. But I'm not going to blame Diego Fagundes for being like, I just got literally stepped on by studs. I'm going to show you that I got stepped on because I got stepped on. That hurt.
You're down 2-0 and you're not creating anything. You get stepped on in the box, go down.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But it was, for me, I couldn't believe when it went to the monitor. I was like, okay, yeah, he's going to take a quick look at this and it's going to be a penalty. I couldn't believe he was standing there having to replay. I don't understand it. It looked very clear and obvious to me that Ibeagha missed the ball. He got his foot goes on clear contact onto the foot of Fagundes. I was pretty shocked that was not a call.
I agree. I thought it was a clear penalty.
Yeah, same. And look, Austin fans frustrated, understandably so. Could that moment have changed the game? It absolutely could have changed the game. I will still say there are 95 other minutes in which Austin could have changed the game as well, and they didn't. So I don't think on the balance of things, you can look back at this and say, hey, we were absolutely hosed. Should that have been a PK? A lot of people are going to say yes. Some people will say no, including the referee of the match, who, by the way, this year, Armando Villarreal has gone to the monitor and said, no, not for me. So this is not a new thing for him. It is ultimately his responsibility, his game, his decision. That's what video review is all about. It's that you're not taking it out of his hands. But a little controversy there. We talked to Christina Uncle about that on Instant Replay with Charlie. So go check that one out. Some consolation for Austin. It can be consolation. It can also be just more pain. They've qualified for the 2023 CONCACAF Champions League. The field is set: LAFC, Philly, Austin, Orlando, Vancouver out of MLS, Atlas, Tigres, León, and Pachuca out of Liga MX. Then it's sort of a smattering of legendary Central American clubs. Olimpia, Motagua, Alianza, Taro.
Spoilers, don't start slow against Pachuca. That team blows you out. They destroyed Toluca in the final.
So Austin will have to prepare for that. First leg matches of round of 16 are the 7th to 9th of March, and then the final is the 31st of May and June 4th. We'll have much more to talk about with that in the coming months, I'm sure. I just want to throw out there just for Anders, we don't even know if the Club World Cup's going to happen. So, Sounders fans, they got that ultimate prize. They're like, we're going to go play Real Madrid. And
it actually works better for Anders. Seattle didn't make the playoffs. They couldn't beat LAFC in the Western Conference Finals, which we've heard him talk about for the last 6.5 months. So it works out perfect.
It does. It does. We would have beat Real Madrid if they just had the Club World Cup. We were right there. We were ready to compete. João Paulo was going to be back. Obed Vargas, yada, yada. All right,
Jordan Morris just pinching them wide.
Just that's the good stuff. MLS Cup preview real quick. Let's take a first look again Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern, Bank of California Stadium, Fox Unimas. Let's just do biggest question for both teams. And we sort of mentioned center backs for LAFC. Doyle, dive in a little bit for us. What is the big question here? Because Eddie Segura, not available in this conference final. And him and Murillo had been the pairing. It hadn't been Chiellini.
Yeah, and that was also kind of because Chiellini's been carrying various knocks. And, as I mentioned, he came out at halftime with calf tightness. Is he going to be able to go 90? Is he going to be able to go 60? And if he can only go 60, is it going to be Seb Ibiaga again? And Sebastian Ibiaga is a really good fourth choice center back. But you don't want your fourth choice center back on the field against a Union team that scored 75 goals this year. You definitely want to have either Chiellini or Segura trying to, out there partnering Murillo. That is absolutely huge. And potentially game defining for this team, in part for the obvious, you need your best defenders out there defending, but also just because Segura and Chiellini are A+ distributors of the ball in this league. They're the types of center backs who can pull that diamond apart, pick their passes and get guys like Cifuentes and Kellen Acosta on the ball in space and able to conduct the game. Seb Ibiaga is much more just functional with his distribution. It eliminates, if neither Chiellini nor Eddie Segura can go, it eliminates one potentially very profitable avenue of attack for this LAFC side.
I get concerned with center back by rotation as a plan. It's pretty difficult. And even when we look at what NYCFC was trying to do was to play one for a little bit and then the next they get through one match, but that can be difficult. And I agree. I think Ibiaga's a starter on a lot of these teams in MLS, and he's very experienced. But even just as far as the rhythm of catching the rhythm of the game, coming in at halftime, you see that tackle where he goes in, and on Fagundes, it's if he begins the game, does he maybe have the rhythm of the game a little bit? It's difficult to come in, especially in a position like that. So I think for me, center back is always a rotation, relationship position. It's an understanding and a rhythm and a partnership. And I think the fact that they're going into this where they're saying, oh, Chiellini, yes, they have been kind of using that for a while now as a system where they play him even when he's fully fit. He rarely plays a whole match. But I do think that as the margins get tighter and you go against a team like Philadelphia, that can cause some problems, especially late on. You see the way Burke came in and, the way this team can really get out and go in transition. I think that's definitely a concern if you're LAFC to figure out who's healthy and who can go from the start and how long can they last.
I think the big question on Philly's side remains Alejandro Bedoya. And that probably won't be answered. I expect some gamesmanship from the Union, Dave, up until game time. But in our pre-show meeting, you mentioned another question that hadn't really even entered my mind, and that's maybe the guys that are trying to stretch those LAFC center backs. Should it actually be Carranza and Ura, who have been such a great partnership?
Yeah, I mean, you start with this game and you say, okay, Corey Burke obviously change of pace sub, but also the most effective player in the attack in the game. That's a starter, right? Corey Burke's not a guy where he just showed up and did this one time. He has shown over the course of his career and in Philadelphia that he can be a starter in a different way. And there's a few elements to this. The first is this is the first playoff game, most likely, that Philly will play against the back four and not a back five, which changes where Ura and Carranza can find space. And maybe that's a reason to say, okay, Ura has a good relationship linking up with Carranza, especially when they can get 2v2. So maybe you want to start him again. But I look at the Cincinnati game and I look at this game, and one of the big threats this year has been Michael Ura getting that ball down the left line, literally on the sideline, and spreading teams out and creating and getting to the end line. He does not look like himself right now in those spaces. And so if he's not capable of damaging a back line the way he has all year, at what point does it become Corey Burke? Or at what point do you change things up? And we've seen Jim Curtin play a 4-5-1 in the past. Does that maybe protect Bedoya a little bit more? Does it protect Paxton Aronson or Jack McGlynn, where you can let them do the things they're good at without asking too much of them defensively and covering ground in such a big game? I don't know that Philly will want to change things that much at this point, but one of the things about this game that I think we're going to talk about as it goes along is Philly's played the same 11, saying all the minutes all year. LAFC, while not on purpose, changing things up, they're probably fresher and they don't have to travel for this game. And so now you look at, a back four that's played almost every minute outside of Nathan Harriel. You look at Jose Martinez, you look at Bedoya's injury. I think you're seeing a Philly team that's not popping at their peak as LAFC is. And how does Jim Curtin squeeze the last few drops out to get them back to LAFC's level, which they were at all regular season, going on the road in such a big moment?
I'm frantically trying to pull up the odds here from BetMGM on MLS Cup. I believe we've got, plus 310 for Union. That's that's not insignificant. And sounds like MGM saying, hey, Union are pretty big underdogs. Now that's all in regulation. And of course things could go to extra time and that all becomes moot. But what do you think about that favorite status for LAFC, Doyle? Is that appropriate?
They're favorites. They're at home, and they were, they were super dominant against this Austin side. Like that was that performance that they put out there in that game was a really compelling way to make it to MLS Cup. They weren't dominant against the Galaxy. Galaxy got the ball in a lot of good spaces. They scored 2 very good goals. They weren't dominant. Well, they kind of were dominant against Nashville on decision day, but they got Joe Willis put in an all-timer of a performance. Of course, Andre Blake could do that. I think they're favorites. Home field advantage matters a ton in MLS. It just does. It always has. But what is it? Plus 315, you said?
310. So
that's significant. I think that I'm not as confident in LAFC as the bookies are.
All right. Let's see. We'll have a full show.
Wait, go ahead, Kalen.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, I think the Bedoya one is definitely huge to watch. Just on that right side, because LAFC's left side was so dominant. Between Chiellini, Palacios, and Bouanga, they just dominate. They just were up and down. I think Rigoni and Lima both had yellow cards in the first half. And so Bedoya not being potentially involved, or I think it'd be hard to keep him out if he is. We've seen that before. Will be big, and just that's one area to watch. And then also what happens with Martinez on the one goal for NYCFC, he gets dragged up the field a little bit. And that's where I have questions of McGlynn, if he starts, him and Gazdag don't quite recognize Maxi making that run or don't track him all the way. And if Martinez gets dragged out, that can leave a little bit of space. And that's where I tend to think guys like Bedoya are going to just maybe sniff that and figure out I gotta really kind of tuck in here to help track that. So I see why they're favorites, but I just keep going back to Blake. And we talked so much. Part of the interesting part to me of the narratives around this is everyone's still bargaining for their MVP candidate. I don't know if they know that.
Speaking of, there's an event scheduled in Nashville this week, a league-wide event.
Got it.
I think we can.
But it's kind of coming down to
wait a minute. Is Nashville signing Messi?
No, I heard Andre Blake's actually connecting through Nashville to get to
Gotcha.
LA.
It makes more sense.
But at the
Get some
MLS
hot
Cup
chicken.
MVP, I still like if Andre Blake could do that. He could definitely do that.
Oh, easy.
I mean,
And
Sean
then on the
Johnson
other
did
side-
it last year, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And we've seen on the other side, I think Ilya was brokering for Arango, right? So like the MVP trophy for this one game is obviously still up for grabs, but I still think for me it's going to take something special from Blake. He's going to have to the way this LAFC team can attack, and I think he's going to have a big day.
28. I was going to say 2018 MLS Cup. It felt like Portland had to play a perfect game. They were heavy underdogs going to Atlanta. 2019 Toronto wasn't super healthy, but this feels like one where if either team plays their best game, that they can win, right? It's not like, oh, if Philly plays incredible, but they're at LAFC, LAFC is just too good. That's not the case with either of these teams, hence why they're the number one seeds. That's what's really exciting. We just don't know where guys are at, health-wise, physical-wise, all that type of stuff. And then the mentality of who can turn it on and play their game. There is a fun element for Philly, which is now they kind of can be themselves, right? They're on the road. They're going to be against the ball. Like, they can make this game a mess in the way they want to. And that might actually play into their hands more so than hosting.
All right, we will have a full preview show on site. I saw you, Kalen. I'm not letting you jump in. I've been trying to go to Leo Messi for like 5 minutes here, and I love the analysis. But we'll have a full show on Thursday from Los Angeles, interviews with coaches, players. We'll take you real deep, is what I'm trying to tell you. 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, November 5th, Bank of California Stadium. MLS Cup, a new champion will be crowned. It's on Fox or Unimas in the U.S., TSN or TV Sports, in Canada. All right, some news from Tom Bogert here. Inter Miami finalizing deal to pick up the purchase option on Leo Campana from Wolverhampton. Fee's going to be almost $3 million on that one. Campana is 22, so they got that part of it done. And David Ornstein reported earlier, he's at The Athletic over in the UK, that Inter Miami are increasingly confident of signing Lionel Messi. Not fully agreed, but Inter Miami now expect him to join and hope it gets done in the coming months. Talks will resume after the World Cup. Tom Bogert on Twitter, somebody said, hey, I wonder how true the Messi rumors are, then laughing emoji. Tom said, Messi Miami reports are very real. Kalen, just reheat your Sky Sports take from this morning for us. I know you already done this, so toss it in the microwave.
We do this every week on Sky. it's either him or Ronaldo. But this one, the fact that this one has some smoke behind it feels different. You know, as far as the timing, the way his form is right now, I mean, it's incredible. And then you think he's going to carry that into the World Cup with Argentina and then potentially come, Inter Miami sounds like I think they have 3 designated player spots open, right? So they have some flexibility, as we shall say.
I think Luis Suarez is a free agent. I'm just throwing that out there.
They're missing an Argentine now. You got to have an Argentine on this roster. So this would be a pretty good one to fill that spot with. Who knows? Maybe Messi could even win the Comeback Player of the Year award. I mean, this would be. I did reflect back to in a serious way towards Beckham's arrival, and when I was playing in the league, and just the way it really changed the complexion of everything from my local newspaper from all the way to the bottom of the news source to the very, very top. Just the insane crowds everywhere you went. And ticket requests, the way that changed. And then the fact that there was 13 teams then, and now there's 29. And I think, they asked me if this would finally put MLS on the map, which is kind of a silly question. But I think when you look at the infrastructure that we have now in MLS and the stadiums, the training facilities, there wasn't even academies when David Beckham showed up. We didn't even have MLS academies.
They weren't feeding you lunch after training, Kalen. They were sending you out of the wilderness.
Struggling. But now I look at it and it's what could that do for youth players here in this country and how it can inspire them and that proximity. And I think the infrastructure now, the way it's set up, is so different. So as far as the timing of it coming from his side, feels pretty compelling. It makes sense. And from MLS side, the fact that there's all this momentum and energy around everything from the Adidas being a big the sponsor, this new Apple deal, the World Cup
international rights through Apple, that people might want to watch Messi around the world. Just
it just feels like there's definitely a lot around it that could make this timing make a ton of sense.
I got 2 points. Go ahead, David. You go first.
Well, it's just Kalen's talking about the difference of the league, and it's just wild that Beckham comes in. It's such a big deal, and now you're listening to like, pundits around the world be like, how does Messi and Bryce Duke fit together? Can Messi take enough of the load? Like the league's just changed so much.
There are 2 points I want to make here. The first one is that if this happens, and it looks like it's going to, it means Alejandro Pozuelo is available, because you can't play Alejandro Pozuelo and Messi together. They're both number 10s at this point in their respective careers.
Love that. That's where it goes. If
I
they
love
sign
that
Messi,
we're doing this.
Pozuelo is available. What is the trickle on for the rest of the league? Pozuelo's out there.
RSL.
Pozuelo was awesome this past year.
We're talking about Leo Messi coming to MLS.
Really
control yourself.
Royal, keep going. You're good.
So like if this had like. Are you interested in Orlando City and need a little more chance creation in Orlando City? Maybe up the road in Charlotte, because they had to drop Swiderski back and play him as a number 10. Maybe in Colorado, right? Like Colorado had 0 chance creation last year.
Yeah, they don't do DPs though.
They don't do DPs, right?
They do trades.
They do, right? They got Jossie. So like that's interesting right there. And the second one is like thinking about like the first Sunday night column I have to write, where it's like Inter Miami lose 3-2 because they just did not defend from the front, and I have to do like this clip with annotations about how Messi's just like because Messi does not defend anymore unless he's playing for Argentina. So just like a guy walking right past Messi and like creating a midfield overload, and that ends with the ball in the back of the net. I'm like, this bum doesn't even defend. He can't do it on a rainy Wednesday night in Chester. What's he even doing here? Come on.
And the like Barca supporters group in like Manana is going to be just ripping you apart on Twitter, and your mentions are going to be absurd in every other language. Look at this American; he doesn't understand.
Meanwhile, Alejandro Pozuelo is putting up numbers. Numbers.
Do you think Pozuelo is definitely going to be the YouTube title for this now?
Right? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Can Mbappe and Neymar sync with Pozuelo over the next year?
Actually, the YouTube title is going to be Hot Sandwiches. We'll end it here. Sean from Boston. I've brought up the best hot sandwich debate with my friends. See, these things get outside of our soccer circle. The group immediately mentioned a contender that the group overlooked. You guys can decide whether or not this counts. The bacon, egg, and cheese. I have to admit, I forgot about it as well, but I wanted to submit it for contention. Is that a hot sandwich?
I mean, yeah. You used to live in New York.
I know, but I sort of break off breakfast sandwiches from lunch and dinner sandwiches as a different variety. The bacon, egg, and cheese is elite. We know this.
It's a tier 1 hot sandwich. Did you mention Katz's? Did you mention a pastrami on rye from Katz's?
I think we did get pastrami in there.
No, we said pastrami queen because that's the best hot pastrami sandwich in New York City right now. Facts.
All right, you got to send me a link. You got to send me a link for that. That's fair. Okay. So the one I'm going to mention, Nardelli's, so folks don't understand. Western Connecticut is basically North Jersey, right? It's the only 2 parts of the country where the plurality ethnicity of the people is Italian. And Nardelli's sandwich shop, the first one was in Naugatuck, and they got a bunch now all over Western Connecticut. Is absolutely fantastic. They do a shaved steak and cheese Nardelli style, which they had, onion, lettuce, tomato, a little bit of dressing, and then they're
free ads here right now for
their hot sauce. So like, if you're ever like, I would put that up against anything. It's so damn good. And then the other one I'm thinking of is a hot chicken sandwich from Hot Chicken Takeover in Columbus. Like that is a
that was my third that I forgot. Well, I was telling you what my other was. It was fried chicken sandwich. So that was my third.
It was specific. I'm doing ads now.
I know.
Specifically the one for Hot Chicken Takeover. Like that is an incredible sandwich.
Is it a grinder or a sub for you?
It's a grinder.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you do the New York Times dialect quiz, right? Like once you say grinder, and the other one for me is tag sale. It knows like we don't call it a stoop sale. We don't call it
sale.
You don't call it a yard sale. We call it a tag sale. It knows exactly. Like you could answer anything else however you want it. It's like, no, I know exactly where you're from.
Yeah, I hit him with the garage sale, and it's like, well, let's just throw a dart in the middle of the country. Right here. All right, Kaylin, do you want to give us a sandwich you like that's hot, or are we going to call this good?
It's not hot, but it's maybe a hot take. I'm going to go with I have Spam Masubi for Thanksgiving. I go to Hawaiian Thanksgiving, so I'm going to be eating a Spam Masubi leftover sandwich while the U.S. beats England the next day.
That is fantastic.
All right, drop the mic on that one.
I will say, once we move off of sandwiches to rice bowls, Spam Loco Moco is absolutely incredible.
If you thought Doyle liked soccer and had a lot to say about soccer, just start rolling him in on lunch items. All right, that's it for us. MLS Cup Saturday. We'll be in LA starting Wednesday, I believe, and you can listen to MLS Today all week long for the best daily content around Major League Soccer. Got it in for you, Dave. And of course, we'll have a great extra time on Thursday, and then pregame and postgame shows on MLS channels ahead and after MLS Cup on Saturday. MLSsoccer.com, your home for all the coverage. Have a great week, everybody. Adios. Congratulations, you made it through more than an hour of extra time. That means you love the show, and if you love the show, you probably want more episodes. Click right here for more episodes of Extra Time, and here to subscribe to the MLS YouTube channel. Thanks for following along.